Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One with me, Raisha Sehgal. And this is Speed News. We're getting the latest from all across the globe in just a matter of 30 minutes. And I'm also being joined by interpreter Miss Rajni. Let's get you started. Two Palestinian journalists have been killed in a targeted Israeli strike. Both employed with a major Qatar-based media house were on an assignment when their car was hit by an Israeli airstrike. A third freelance journalist traveling with them is said to be seriously injured. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv on Sunday, families of those abducted to Gaza on October 7th organized a display of shoes at a seaside promenade. Relatives also held a press conference at the hostages' plaza later in the day. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinkin is scheduled to hold talks in UAE and Saudi Arabia today. Blinkin has warned that without peace efforts, the war could escalate across the region. Blinkin has been in Jordan and Qatar on a 5-day diplomatic push to ease tensions in the region. Blinkin has cautioned Israeli officials on preventing civilian casualties in Gaza, emphasizing that Palestinians be allowed to return to the Strip and not be pressed to leave their homes. Qatari officials are said to have discussed release of the hostages with the U.S. Secretary of State. The Israeli cabinet is slated to vote on the annual war budget later this week. Finance Minister has confirmed on Sunday after a successful vote to approve $2.5 billion to support military reservists. Earlier in December, the Knesset approved a special wartime budget of over $8 billion. Israel's finance ministry has stated that the war is likely to cost an additional $14 billion, which may result in a near tripling of its deficit to around 6% of the GDP. Russia launched 28 attack drones and 3 cruise missiles on the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The Ukrainian Air Force claims to have shot down 21 of those drones. As a result of the attack, 12 people were left injured while several buildings, including a school, were damaged. In the southern city of Kherson, 2 people died and several others injured by Russian shelling. On the other hand, 3 people have been injured after Ukrainian armed forces shelled a hospital in the Leninsky district of Donetsk. Japanese Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa paid a surprise visit to Kiev on Sunday, where she said that Tokyo is determined to continue its support to Ukraine. The two leaders discussed intensifying bilateral cooperation in the recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine. Kamikawa also announced new supply of defense equipment to Ukraine. Japan has pledged $37 million to a NATO fund for anti-drone equipment for Ukraine. Bangladesh's ruling party has swept to victory, giving Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina a 5th term. According to unofficial results released by the Election Commission, her Awami League party has won seats in Sunday's elections. Results for the rest of the seats are still unannounced. Independent contestants took 52 seats and the Jataya party won 11 seats. Among the winners was the Bangladesh cricket team captain Shakib Al Hasan. Shakib contested for the Awami League and registered a landslide victory in the polls boycotted by the main opposition party. Hasina's party faced almost no effective rivals in the seats it contested, but it avoided fielding contestants in few constituencies. India's Supreme Court has quashed the remission of 11 convicts in the Bilkis Bano gang rape case, overruling the Gujarat government's 2022 decision. The top court said that the case was not under the state's territory and that the imprisonment convicting the 11 will be upheld. Banu was 21 years old and 5 months pregnant when she was gang raped during the Gujarat riots that broke out in 2002. Iranian authorities whipped a woman 74 times for violating public morals and fined her for not covering her head. The judiciary announced that the convicted encouraged permissiveness by appearing disgracefully in busy public places in Tehran. All women in Iran are required to cover their neck and head after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Officials have installed surveillance cameras in public places to monitor the violations. Whipping for the dress code breach are uncommon in Iran. The practice was revived after the anti-government demonstrations that began in late 2022. In other news, a fire raged through a Rohingya camp in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar in southeast Bangladesh, leaving thousands homeless. The blaze broke out in the early hours of Sunday, destroying around 800 shelters. The fire hit camps in Cox's Bazar, located near the Myanmar border. The fire service officials and Rohingya volunteers managed to bring the situation under control. About 3 hours later, Bangladesh's Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commissioner said that there were no casualties. The destruction extended beyond homes. Nearly 120 facilities, including schools, mosques and healthcare centers, were also gutted. Airstrikes by the Myanmar military on a village controlled by the pro-democracy resistance in the country's northwest killed at least 17 civilians, including 9 children. The morning attacks on the Kenan village just south of the Indian border also wounded 20 people. Local residents claim a fighter jet dropped 3 bombs. The military authorities denied responsibility for the attack. The military government often accuses pro-democracy forces in the area of carrying out violent campaigns of terror. Myanmar is experiencing violence that began after the army ousted the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi in 2021. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has demanded the release of those jailed for the 2021 Capitol attack while downplaying his role in the siege. He also claimed that the jailed people are being mistreated by the Biden administration. Speaking at a campaign event in Iowa, Trump called those jailed in the January 6th attack hostages. Over 1,200 people have been charged with taking part in the riot, and more than 900 have either pleaded guilty or been convicted following a trial. Speaking to over 1,000 supporters, Trump repeated his unfounded claims that the 2020 election was fraudulent and cast himself as a victim of political persecution. Trump had even suggested during previous campaign stops that the FBI agents played a major role in instigating the attack. Demonstrators, they're outside the White House against Pakistan on what they termed the forced disappearance of Baloch people. The protest was organized by members of the diaspora from Balochistan. One of the demonstrators said that the aim was to draw attention to the horrors that have been taking place in Balochistan over the past 75 years. Germany has announced that it will allow further supply of Eurofighter jets to Saudi Arabia. Berlin had halted arms sales to Saudi Arabia after the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018. Chancellor Olaf Scholz had pushed back against pressure to unblock supply of Eurofighter jets to Saudi Arabia. His coalition partner, the Greens, had firmly opposed the move, pointing to human rights concerns and Saudi Arabia's role in the Yemen war. The Eurofighter project is a joint British, German, Italian and Spanish effort. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited a chicken farm with his daughter on Sunday. Pyongyang state media reported that Kim called for increasing poultry production for a substantial change in the people's standard of living. Kim also called for taking the farm as a standard model for modernizing poultry factories across the nation. North Korea has been focusing on strengthening grain production due to the country's chronic food shortages. The death toll from Japan's earthquake has risen to 161, while 103 people are still reported missing. Snow is hampering relief and rescue efforts. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has assured support to areas that continue to reel from the aftermath of the earthquakes. The government is sending toilet-equipped trailers to the affected areas. Spain's Coast Guard rescued 132 migrants off the Canary Islands during a separate rescue operation. Well, Spain's Coast Guard said that they rescued a man traveling in a truck tire. Reports said that the man traveling in the tire claims that he had started the journey with a friend who had died on the way. According to the reports, 56,852 migrants illegally entered Spain by land in 2023. And this is an 82% year-on-year increase and the highest number since 2018. Italian mountain rescue teams found the bodies of two hikers in the Alps after an avalanche on Sunday close to the border with Switzerland. One of the victims was found buried in snow while the body of the other was recovered from a lake. A specialist rescue team was sent to the scene by helicopter despite strong winds in the area. A rescue dog also helped in recovering the bodies. A winter storm blanketed the U.S. East Coast, leaving roads, yards and vehicles in snow. Footage shows people across the east shoveling snow and taking pictures in what appeared like a winter wonderland. According to the local media, several communities in the area recorded 12 inches of snow. Winter storm warnings were sounded for over 15 million people in parts of the East Coast and as far west as Nevada on Sunday morning. A tornado ripped through southern Florida, uprooting trees and causing damage in the region. Videos shot by locals show uprooted trees and damaged power lines on the road. There were no reports of immediate injuries, with only scattered power outages in some areas. The tornado came amid a stormy weekend in South Florida. Officials issued a tornado warning across the county. We're talking about the Broward County, minutes before the twister was spotted. More severe weather is possible in Florida in the coming few days. Winter sports enthusiasts hit the slopes of the Yabuli ski resort in China's Harbin, famous for its frosty winters and spectacular ice festivals. During this year's ski season, the Yabuli ski resort in the snow capital of northeast China's province has attracted record numbers of tourists. The city, famous for its annual ice and snow festival, has generated a record-breaking tourism revenue of $832 million. According to recent data released by the government of the province, a staggering 27.5 million domestic and international travelers visited the province in November 2023. German exports rose much more than expected in November as demand in the European Union increased strongly, according to data from the Federal Statistics Office. German exports rose by 3.7% in November compared with the previous month. Imports rose by 1.9% from October. The foreign trade balance showed a surplus of $22.3 billion in November versus a surplus of $17.7 billion in the previous month. Thailand has received a green light to borrow funds to finance its controversial $14.3 billion digital handout scheme. According to a senior official, the program is to give away 10,000 baht, which is around 50 million Thais, to spend in their local communities. It was the signature election policy of the ruling party. The government is seeking to spur growth in Southeast Asia's second biggest economy, largely through stimulus and consumer spending, with Thailand trailing regional peers with growth forecast. A Reuters report claims that US chip maker Nvidia plans to begin mass production in the second quarter of 2024 of an AI chip designed for China to comply with US export rules. The H20 chip is the most powerful of three China-focused chips Nvidia has manufactured to meet restrictions announced in October. It was originally scheduled for launch last November, but that plan was delayed, with a Reuters report suggesting that at that time the delay was due to issues in server manufacturers. US manufacturers are still struggling to emerge from the prolonged slump that began in the middle of 2022 as the pandemic-driven surge in merchandise buying subsided and consumers reverted to spending on services, according to a report by Reuters. The report suggests that merchandise inventories have begun to normalize, but companies making expensive business equipment and consumer durables are being hit by the high borrowing costs, resulting from the biggest increases to rate cuts for 4 decades. While US manufacturer reported a decline in business activity for a 14th month in a row in December, the longest business cycle slowdown since the recessions in 2001 and early 90s. Alaska Airlines said that it had cancelled 170 flights and a further 60 after the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration ordered the grounding of 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 airplanes to run inspections. The airline said that the cancellations would continue through the first half of the week. The Sunday cancellations affected nearly 25,000 guests. According to the airline, the Federal Aviation Administration on Saturday ordered the grounding of 171 Boeing jets installed with the same panel after an 8-week-old Alaska Airlines jet was forced to make an emergency landing.